Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order the meeting for the Metropolitan King County Council for April 28th, 2020. I want to welcome everyone here today. This is our first attempt at a broadcast video meeting. We've been doing them by audio. So thank you to my colleagues and to all the staff who are part of this experiment today. And I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Here.
Councilmember Lambert.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Here.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Here.
Councilmember Zahalai. Madam Chair.
Here.
Madam Chair, you currently have 7 of 9 members.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is normally where we do the flag salute and the Pledge of Allegiance. Since we are not in a place with a flag, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge just the scale of the crisis our nation and our county are facing. We're seeing across the country our loss of lives, loss of livelihood, loss of what we once experienced as our daily life. I know all my colleagues join me in sending condolences to the families who have lost loved ones to this disease, including tragically 416 people right here in King County. I know we all also share the respect and admiration for our frontline workers, healthcare workers, emergency responders, and people who are out there, including our transit operators, grocery clerks, everyone who's putting their own safety at risk to serve our communities. We can honor their risk and their sacrifice by continuing to do our part to help, by not adding to the risk, by staying home as much as possible, and by staying healthy. I want to recognize the challenge we're asking people to take on by asking them to stay at home. The economic, health, and emotional impacts on people and families are significant. And I know we're all looking forward to the day when we can ease up on restrictions, but until then, know that we're all in this together, and that only by all of us doing our part can we all be here to enjoy that day when it comes. So we'll move on into our agenda, and the first item for action today is the approval of the minutes of our April 14th meeting. I will call on Vice Chair McDermott to put those before us.
Move adoption of our April 14th minutes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. They're in front of us. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motions are adopted by unanimous voice vote. In light of the public health emergency, as we all know, but for the sake of the public, the governor has issued an emergency order suspending the portion of the Open Public Meetings Act that require us to have a physical space for the public to gather and watch our meetings. While we are meeting remotely without such a physical space, we are limited in the matters we can take up to those that are necessary and routine, or necessary to respond to the COVID-19 outbreak and the current public health emergency. The matters on the agenda before us for briefing or action have been determined to meet these criteria. I believe, I haven't seen it yet, but we were to be sent a green folder email. Did that come across, you all?
Yes.
Okay. That is where any of the late breaking documents that we need to refer to in our meeting today. Staff, can somebody tell me where to find that? Because I didn't see it.
Angel sent an email earlier today, and then Wendy sent one maybe an hour and a half ago that had a link to the meeting packet and the green folder and some highlights of today.
I see that. Thank you. That one was at 11:39 a.m. for anybody who's looking for it. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Councilmember Zahalai. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Presence for the record.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I was going to add. I was going to also request Councilmember Von Reitbauer's usual of acknowledging people's here or not here presence or vote.
We now have, for the record, all 8 of 9 council members. Only Councilmember Dunn is currently not with us as far as I know. And when we take roll call votes, I will ask the clerk to read out after each vote the name of the person voting and their aye or nays for the record. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You bet. Okay, let me get back into my notes. I All right, having passed the preliminaries, we're now going to move into general public comment. And first, we have some preliminary procedural votes to put all the items before us that are on our agenda for today that need to be brought out of committee. So first, I'm going to call on Councilmember McDermott to move to relieve the Government Accountability and Oversight Committee in order to take action on item 7.
Madam Chair, so moved.
All right, that item is before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Second of 3 of these, Councilmember McDermott, would you move to relieve the Mobility and Environment Committee in order to take action on items 9 and 10?
So moved.
Those 2 items are before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would move to suspend the rules to take action on item 11 without referral to committee. And to
Councilmember, can I ask you to hold off just 1 second?
Oh, I think I jumped the gun.
Any opposed on items 9 and 10? Hearing none, the motion carries. Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I move we suspend the rules to take action on item 11 without referral to committee and to hold the public hearing without waiting the required period.
Thank you, Councilmember. That item is before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. So now all of the items on today's agenda are properly before us for action. So for today's meeting, we're going to have a combined single opportunity for people to give public comment. And that is the general public comment that we do once each month, and to comment in public hearing on any of the ordinances on our agenda that are listed for action. It seems like Councilmember Dunn is joining us. Let's admit him. So many more things going on in a meeting like this. Councilmember Dunn, are you with us? All right, eventually he will be here. So on public comment, under the council's rules, we offer the public the opportunity to make general public comments on the 4th Tuesday of each month. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. General comment is limited to matters relating to the county government, but it does not need to be on an item specifically on our agenda today. So it's broader than usual. You're invited during this period to testify on the ordinances listed on today's agenda for action, items 7 through 11, if you are here to do that. I ask that people not use their comments or testimony for the purpose of assisting a campaign for election of any person to any office, or for the promotion of or opposition to any ballot measure, and comments must not include obscene speech. If a speaker fails to abide by these restrictions, I will rule them out of order and ultimately may require the speaker to exit the virtual meeting. Having an entirely remote meeting is unusual for the King County Council, so I just want to make sure everyone who called in understands how I will be managing public comment. As all members of the public join the meeting, they were automatically muted. There are 11 people who filled out the online form before the meeting, and I will call on those people first by name. When those people have spoken, I'm going to call on the remaining people on the line by the last 3 digits of your phone numbers. When I call on you either by name or by the last 3 digits of your phone number, I will unmute your line so we can all hear you. Please start by stating your name for the record. And if we don't have it in writing, I'm going to ask you to spell your name for the record. Then wait a moment, if you would, so that I can acknowledge that I heard you, so you're not speaking into a muted microphone for your whole 2 minutes. At that point, after I've acknowledged you, then the timer will start and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And there will be an alarm of some kind at the end of 2 minutes. When that happens, if you still have something to say, please finish your thought and wrap up quickly so that the next person can be allowed to speak. Anyone who goes much past 2 minutes may be muted. Once you have given your testimony, please hang up or leave the Zoom meeting, and then you can follow the remainder of the meeting on King County TV, channel 22, or you can stream it online. The council's website, the link is on the council's website, which is www.kingcounty.gov/council. And you can click on the Watch Us Live button to watch that just reduces the list of people that I'm having to manage as we work our way through the meeting. So I appreciate people signing off the meeting when they're done commenting. If you are listening on the TV or streaming while waiting to speak, please turn that function off. Otherwise, we're going to hear feedback on the line. And again, if anyone is disruptive to the meeting, we will require them to leave the virtual meeting. So that those are the preliminaries. I hope that all made sense. Of course, anyone can choose to hang up at any time. And at this point, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the items into the record, and then we will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 7 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0149 relating to the King County District Court electoral district boundaries for 2020. Item 8 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0158 approving and adopting the collective bargaining agreement negotiated by and between King County and Puget Sound Police Managers Association, Majors, King County Sheriff's Office, representing employees in the King County Sheriff's Office, and establishing the effective date of the agreement. Item 9 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0119, an ordinance approving September 2020 public transportation service changes for King County. Item 10 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0120, establishing the locally preferred alternative, including the alignment and station locations of the Rapid Ride, I-Line, Renton, Kent, Auburn. And item 11 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0175, amending the King County Council rules in response to an emergency declaration issued by the King County Executive and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, at this time, I'm going to call on people who signed up to speak in advance. The first person on the list to speak is Xochitl Garcia. Ms. Garcia, are you on the line? Xochitl Garcia, on behalf of the Community Health Board Coalition, are you with us? Please unmute and speak if you are. Okay, we'll come back.
I think we would have to unmute the speaker, but I don't see that phone number on our list.
Okay, we'll come back to it and try again in a bit. So the next person on the list is Wilbur Guerrero. Madam Clerk, are you looking for the numbers?
I am. I'm not seeing that number either.
Okay. We may have to circle back to this one.
Okay.
The next person signed up to speak is Yordanos Teferi.
I also don't see that number or name.
Okay. Henry Tehutley or Tehutley.
I don't see that number.
Okay, so let's take a pause here for a moment because I'm wondering if this system is working. And I wonder if you can, Madam Clerk, take a look. Welcome, Councilmember Dunn. For the record, Councilmember Dunn has joined the meeting. Good to see you. That is not Council. You know, you can just upload a picture. You don't need to place the picture. Thank you. Can you take a look briefly and see if there are any numbers that do match numbers that are on the line?
Yes, I will do that right now.
We're going to be at ease for a moment here.
Madam Chair, the bottom one on my screen, which ends in 942, is someone signed up to speak.
Okay, let's try this and see if it works.
And they will need to be unmuted. So I have now unmuted them.
Okay. Is Robin Naroon on the line?
Yes, this is Robin Naroon.
Thank
Can you hear me?
so much. We can hear you. We're very glad that you're with us. Please go ahead and give your comment or testimony.
Okay, I believe the other people are, I'm getting texts that they can't get in and they would like to speak, and some of them are on Skype. This is Robin Naroon, it's Narruhn from the Community Health Board Coalition. And we are a coalition of Black, Indigenous, and people of color organization that works to improve the health outcomes of communities of color in Washington through policy and system change. We have 14 community health boards that comprise the CHBC. And we know that although COVID-19 does not discriminate along racial or ethnic lines, existing racial disparities and inequities in health outcomes and healthcare access indicate that the nation's response to preventing and mitigating its harms will not be felt equally in every community. Lack of information and resources will exacerbate existing health disparities and result in the loss of lives in vulnerable communities that also comprise much of the essential workforce. Many of our community members have not had access to information, healthcare, or resources that are readily available to others. So we're asking that the CHBC, CHBC is on the front lines of the response, and we're asking that we invest no less than $15 million in the COVID relief fund. And that funding really needed is 10 times greater than the initial fund. For Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, including undocumented workers and families in our communities, with no restrictions for these funds. BIPOC communities are often excluded from emergency relief funds due to the historical and societal factors. Undocumented workers and families from our communities are systematically excluded from emergency funds, even though they're taxpayers, and undoubtedly the backbone of King County's and the U.S.'s economic structure. We would like our resources directed to immigrants and refugees, low-wage workers, domestic workers, caregivers, and those in the informal and gig economies who are at the greatest risk from the pandemic. So historically, our communities have been left behind in things that are first come and first served grants, especially when they're offered only in English. There are barriers to the application process, which are often administered online. Our communities don't have maybe technological expertise or even internet or laptops to access that. So, clearly our society depends on gig workers, low-wage workers, essential workers. We're grateful for any funds that have come to us, but we think our attempts will help the greatest number of people if we receive funds in this manner that goes actually to the community.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Balducci, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Ms. Naroon, if you're still listening, if we were to text or email you the correct login information, could you share it with the other people that you say are texting you trying to get in?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you kindly look, we have an email address and a cell phone number on the sign-in sheet. Could you send the correct login information to one of those?
I can take care of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to shift from calling on people on the list to calling on people by phone number. So we're going to just...
Yeah, I think if you go down the guest list, some of them are coming in with names and then some are coming in with numbers.
Yeah. So when I go down below the co-host and then I start with number 518, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay. All right, there are a number of people on here. Some of them are county staff. If I recognize your name as county staff, I'm not going to call on you now, but I may not recognize everybody. So the next person on the list to give public testimony has a phone number ending in the digits 942.
You already called on 942, Madam
Okay.
Chair. It's 518, the one above it.
The person at number 518, we'll unmute you. Hold on a second. The muting is off to the side. You're unmuted. Would you please state your name? Person at phone number 518, are you on the line? Okay. The next person on the list is, the name is Chief Bo. That's maybe somebody from the sheriff's office. Chief Bo, are you on the line?
I am here.
Are you here as staff or to testify?
I am here as part of the agenda item number 8, I believe.
Very good. Welcome and thank you. We'll move on. Okay. Madam Clerk, my list keeps it.
You want me to go down it? I can.
Yeah, please do, because it keeps
Okay.
changing. People are disappearing and bouncing around.
The next number is 878.
Now I can't unmute because I don't know where you are on the list, so someone else is.
They are unmuted.
Okay.
Yep. 878. The next next name is P.T. Bush. And I will unmute. P.T. Bush.
Hello, I'm also here for agenda item 8.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
The next number is 878. The next person is Dana Sims.
Yes, I'm right here.
Please go ahead and state your name and then give your comment.
Sure.
Welcome.
My name is Dana Sims. That's S-I-M-S. I'm calling today on behalf of the Washington Music and Nightlife Association. I am the owner of El Corazon and the Funhouse, both established music venues that have been central to King County's music scene for over 2 decades. I'm calling today to let you know that music venues are part of a much bigger ecosystem. They provide stages for artists to perform, develop, and grow. They provide jobs for production workers, stagehands, sound techs, security personnel, bartenders, servers, audiovisual and light techs, janitors, the list goes on. Venues are a significant driver of economic activity, employment, tax revenue, neighborhood vibrancy, and spending and tourism. Investment in live music is an investment in our cultural wealth and identity, and also an economic opportunity. Studies show that for every dollar venues generate in ticket sales, $12 of revenue is realized by area restaurants, hotels, and retail establishments. Live music brings people here. It ranks as one of the major reasons to visit King County among the 40.9 million annual visitors. According to a Live Nation survey, 72% of Generation Z and millennials have driven over 100 miles to attend a live music event. More than that, the region's international image, our brand, is based on our incredible legacy of music and innovation. It's part of our cultural fabric. That sense of transformation and inspiration that the music scene has gives the region a competitive edge in recruiting and retaining young, talented workers and attracting entrepreneurs and innovators. Major tech, health, and travel companies all lean on the live music scene in King County in their recruitment materials. The region's music legacy is the very first bullet point about Seattle on Amazon's recruitment page. Amazon, UW, Microsoft, and Seattle Children's all prominently feature live music and recruitment materials. Let me give you an example of numbers for you. In 2019, my venue put on 442 events. 6,824 musicians performed on our stages. 3,784 of those musicians reside in King County. Those artists collectively made $1.8 million, an average of $150,000 per month. 127,858 people attended events in our space last year. Using the $12 of revenue realized by area restaurants, hotels, and retail establishments figure I cited earlier, that means that every dollar spent on tickets by people who attended shows just in my venues last year put $1.5 million into the local economy. Over $1.5 million per dollar spent. Our average ticket price is $15 to $20, so that's $23 to $30 million put into the economy, and I am just 2 of many venues in the county. Pollstar, which is the industry trade association that tracks ticket sales of live music events worldwide, consistently has 7 King County venues in the top 100 venues of annual ticket sales. That is a profound number. We pull a lot of people into live music venues in King County to connect with artists and each other. Why some funding and assistance matters. We were some of the first businesses to close, and we will be some of the last to reopen. Between employees and industry contract workers, we employ a ton of folks. Because we are spaces which promote and encourage social gathering, we have a lot of space, and space equates to sizable rent and overhead.
Sir, your time has elapsed.
Okay, thank you.
You're muted, Council.
Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna make an audible here. I've got a 2-minute timer here that's got a ringer at the end. I think that's going to be less jarring to people than having somebody have to speak in and say stop now. So let's try that. Please go on with the list, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ava Walker.
Hi,
Walker.
I'm Eva Walker.
Welcome
Sorry.
very much. We can hear you. Please go ahead and give your comment.
Okay, my name is Eva Walker, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Washington Nightlife and Music Association as well. I play in a local band called the Black Tones, and I'm also the host of Audio Oasis on KEXP and the co-host of Video Bebop on the Seattle channel. Both shows are Northwest themed shows. One's a television show, and one, as you're aware of, KEXP is a radio show. I'm here in front of you because my family moved to Seattle in 1969. And in 2011, my twin brother and I started the Black Tones in my grandmother's basement. And these small to medium-sized venues have been there every step of the way of our career as a rock and roll band. Since my grandma's basement, we've played with Death Cab for Cutie twice, we've played with Mavis Staples, and we've played with Weezer. And we've collaborated with the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Mike McCready of Pearl Jam. And as I said, every step of the way, the King County venues have been there for us. There is no Nirvana, there's no Pearl Jam, there's no Macklemore, there's no Black Tones without these local venues. And when people think of the music scene, and when they think of Seattle, they think of how rich it is in music. Nirvana, as you just heard from Dana Sims, who owns El Corazon, Nirvana has played the Central Saloon, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains have played El Corazon, and these are documented. You don't go from your grandma's basement to playing the Paramount by just walking into the Paramount. You need keys, and those keys for a lot of us are our small to mid-sized music venues. In addition to that, a lot of the artists in this area don't only use these venues for performance reasons, but a lot of these artists work at these venues. So these are jobs other than just being on stage. And it's also a place for the common 9-to-5 worker to come and enjoy a show and to embrace in Seattle culture. We had the mayor, and I know this is Thurston County, but for example, we had the mayor of Olympia come to our show in Olympia at the Octopus Lounge, which is only a 250 person size venue, which is the size of the Sunset Tavern.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the timer went off and it was soft. It was very hard to hear, but it went off about 10 seconds ago. Can you wrap up your comments, please?
Yes. In addition to all this, we need our medium to small size venues for the progress of our artists and our musicians, to keep them employed here and keep our music culture thriving. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next guest is JUTILLD.
I think that's probably Chief Utila. I'm guessing. Maybe not.
For some reason, the unmute is not working on this item.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is, yes, Major Dave Jutilla, and I'm here for item number 8.
Major. Thank you, Major. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
The next guest is KG. KG.
Oh, they're muted.
They were unmuted. Let's see.
I did it.
Okay.
Sorry, Melanie, this is Corinne.
Oh, okay.
No testimony needed.
Okay, thank you. The next guest is Kay Soliz, S-O-L-I-Z.
Sorry, I'm just here listening into the council meeting today.
Welcome.
Okay.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you. The next guest is Marenko J.E.
I'm here for agenda item number 8.
Okay, thank you. The next guest is first initials J.M., last name Matsy.
I'm also here for item number 8.
Okay, thank you. The next guest is Natalie.
I'm here for item number 10.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The next guest is Axel Garcia. Oops, sorry, Garcia. Oops.
Hello.
Hi there. Please state your name.
This is Xochitl Garcia.
Welcome. Please go ahead and give your testimony.
Hi. So I'm speaking on behalf of the CHBC. I don't know if a colleague may have spoken earlier. I had some connection issues. But our Community Health Board Coalition is a mostly Black, Indigenous, people of color led organization that primarily works to uphold health as a priority in our communities of color in Washington. So one of the things that we want to recommend to this city council is to ensure that funds are allocated to Black, Indigenous, people of color led community organizations with deep relationships and commitments to equity and social justice. We also want to emphasize the importance to continue investment from King County in Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led communities via equitable partnerships, shared decision-making, and representation of these communities in policy development that directly impacts King County residents today and in the future. I think that this crisis has sort of highlighted the disparities that have existed historically in our communities, and we need to work for a solution as soon as possible because this situation, this crisis affects us all.
Okay, thank you so much. And yes, we did hear also from Robin from the organization as well. We're glad you could join us today, both of you.
Madam Chair, the last number that has not been called on ends in 992. 992. Oh, the number has disappeared. I think that is everybody on the line.
Well, thank you all very much. And to everyone on the line, you know, this is a new platform we're using today, and we're still working out how to identify the difference between different categories of people who are on the line for different reasons. But I just want to say that this, we're trying to maintain our strong commitment to our open meetings being open to people speaking to us live, not just sending us emails or participating in some other way. And so a little jumpy, but I'm really glad that we were able to hear from people who wanted to talk to us about important issues before the council this month. So now we will move on in our agenda. The public hearing is closed. And the next item is item 7, proposed ordinance number 2020-0149. Councilmember Von Reichbauer, would you move this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So moved.
Okay, the item is before us. Councilmember Von Reichbauer, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, we were referencing the issue that some of the folks who've come to speak today, or are we going to allow some of the representatives of the sheriff's office to speak today?
We have an item on the chief's contract, not the chief's, I'm sorry, we have an item of a managerial contract for KCSO today, and I think a number of those folks were here for that item. And we will call on staff to speak. And if there are folks who want to speak to it from the sheriff's office, I'm sure we can work that out.
Okay. Pardon me, I'm just trying to work my computer a little bit. So we're now on item number 9 or 8?
7.
7. Thank you.
Electoral district boundaries for district court.
Okay. I move adoption of item number 8, 2020-0149.
We're on item 7. It's before us, and we have staff available to speak to it before we take up the motion on item 8, if that's okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, it just makes descriptive changes to the electoral divisions of the King County District Court.
Okay. Yeah, this is a thing that we do from time to time. I understand it's routine, and we do have Sam Porter from policy staff. Is there anything you want to add, Sam?
No, Madam Chair, this does just make descriptive changes to to align the King County District Court with the precinct changes that occurred earlier this year, and it does not change the boundaries of the district court.
Very good. We do also have executive staff available for questions if there are any. Council members, are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll and recognize each vote as you hear it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski. Oh, he's muted.
You are unmuted. No.
Oh, we think we both did it. I'm going to let you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Oh my goodness. Try again. Try now.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Was that an aye or a meow? Von Reitbauer votes aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay. By our vote, the matter is approved. Now we're on to item 8, and this is proposed ordinance 2020-0158. Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of ordinance 2020-158.
Okay, that item is before us, and this is the collective bargaining agreement between King County and the Puget Sound Police Managers Association, which is majors in the King County Sheriff's Office. Councilmember McDermott, do you want to speak to this item?
I would yield any questions to Mr. Curry, and I know we have executive staff available as well.
All right, Mr. Curry, do you have any introductory comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, as you noted, this is would approve a collective bargaining agreement between the county and the majors and the sheriff's office for the period of January 1, 2019 to 2020. It basically brings much of the contract in line with the recent master labor agreement and also the recent agreement with the Police Officers Guild. One note is that because of compression with captain's pay, majors obviously supervise captains, there is an increase in pay in the collective bargaining agreement in those pay ranges in order to recognize that compression. And if there are no questions for me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Cliff or for executive staff on the question of the contract before us? All right, seeing none, I will ask the clerk to please call.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer, please go ahead.
As you may recall our conversation yesterday, I was going to comment at this time about the fact that the GAO committee, which normally would process this measure, has had the opportunity to review it in this unusual circumstances. I think Councilmember Dembowski and I independently have had the chance to review it in light of the unusual circumstances by which this normally would go to the GAO committee. Is that correct?
Well, there's 2 items. The first one, of course, is just the collective bargaining agreement, which would increase the salary of the majors, among other things. And then after we take the vote on that, this question of what happens with the chiefs and the undersheriff who are just above the majors on the org chart, that's what you're speaking to. So let me take the vote and then we'll do that item. But you're correct. This is the place to do it. But let's just do the vote real quick on the contract. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on proposed ordinance number 2020-0158?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay, so that ordinance is adopted unanimously. And now, if I may, Councilmember Von Riker, I'm just going to reiterate what you said a little bit. And there is a letter in our electronic green folders from Jay Osborne, the county's human resources director, and it references this issue that our government accountability and oversight chair, Von Reichbauer, brought up a moment ago. And that is that because we've adopted this new range in this contract we just voted on for the majors, that this means that they now are either making more than people above them or very, very close to people above them on the org chart. And those senior management positions haven't received a pay range increase in quite some time. So we've been requested to look at a range adjustment for the undersheriff and the chiefs. I believe that's 4 people, 4 positions in the government. I may be wrong by 1 or 2, but that's my understanding. Under normal circumstances, according to our code, this request would go to the Government Accountability and Oversight Committee for confirmation only. They don't vote on it, they would just concur with it. Mr. Osborne has sent this request over, and it's been shared with the members of the GAO committee, who are the chair of the committee is Councilmember Von Reichbauer, Councilmember Dembowski, and myself. But since GAO is not meeting and this request is linked to the collective bargaining meeting we just passed, it seems that doing the concurrence here and now seems appropriate. I will pause there and ask if any member would like to hear from Mr. Osborne to explain the request in more detail before I ask for concurrence. Councilmember Lambert, would you like to hear more?
I just have a quick question. This is fine. I've looked at the fiscal note, but when we are negotiating, are we looking at compression issues so that we don't create this in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody from the executive branch who would like to answer that question?
This is Jay Osborne for the record. I am the HR director for the executive branch. And yes, this is the last bit of what we have been tinkering with to make all of the salaries fall in line in the sheriff's office. And this takes care of that issue going forward.
But the question, and maybe it's more for a labor relations person, I can answer from my historical experience, Councilmember Lambert. The labor relations folks, when they negotiate agreements, do tend to look at compression. And if they don't, the department directors will, or the agency leadership will do that, because it's always problematic when you raise lower level salaries to this, close to or more than the people that are supervising them. It just causes organizational problems.
Absolutely. And that's why I want to make sure if it was like on the checkout list, things that you evaluate during negotiations, because what you just said is completely accurate. And I'm very pleased that this has been a long, long process. And so I'm glad this is the last step in this long process. And I looked to see that some of the components did look like they were close to the master labor agreement. So I'm wondering if, and this is hard one day, if you could kind of give me a ballpark. Is this like 10% similar to the master labor agreement? Is like 50%? Is like 70%? What percentage ballpark would you say is close to the master labor agreement?
And I don't know, I think Bob Railton is on the line too, and he might be able to answer that specifically. But with what Councilmember Balducci said was correct. Approval of this contract impacts the 4 people, 3 sheriffs and 1 undersheriff. It would put the majors at 3% over the chiefs, who are their bosses. What this action is that we're taking corrects it by 9%.
Jay, that wasn't my question. I'm sorry. I read that. Thank you. What my question was on the entire contract, how close, not only on the major part, but the front end of the contract part where we were talking about the entire package now, is that close to the master labor agreement in all the aspects of contract?
Madam Chair, Bob Railton, Deputy Director, Labor Relations. Can you hear me?
Mr. Railton. Yes, I can. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to respond to Councilmember Lambert's question. It's hard to put a percentage in terms of the relationship of the majors contract to that of the master labor agreement, other than to sit there and say that the leave provisions are substantially similar to the master labor agreement, as well as the union recognition provisions. There's a number of things in the master labor agreement that wouldn't necessarily pertain nor be applicable to the majors agreement. So that's a pretty good amount of provisions that do apply, and key provisions, as it were. If I was to sit there and guess in terms of a percentage, I would sit there and say less than 50%, but key 50%.
Thank you. I was pleased to see that there were provisions that looked a lot closer. So thank you.
And also to Madam Chair, to answer your question, you were spot on with that. We were very conscious during the bargaining for the majors agreement of the compression issues to their subordinates, as well as to their superiors.
Yeah, they're generally not subtle issues. So, okay, what is before us at the moment, we voted on the contract was approved. What we're asking now is, without Councilmember Dembowski, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I concur in the recommendations set forth in Mr. Osborne's letter on this item.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Von Reichbauer, do you also concur?
As I stated before, I do concur.
Very good. I do as well, and that's the 3 members of the GAO committee, so we will consider this matter confirmed as requested. And that's all we have to do on that one. So thank you, Mr. Osborne and Mr. Railton. We're going to move on to item 9, proposed ordinance 2020-0119, which is the September 2020 service change. Councilmember Dembowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of the ordinance.
All right, the item is before us. I understand we have a briefing from Leah Krekelzapi, but Councilmember Dembowski, do you want to say anything up front?
No, these are primarily service changes on our regular schedule that affect South King County, and Councilmember Up the Grove may have a few comments. I'll defer to him after the briefing or before, whichever you prefer.
Councilmember Up the Grove, you want to wait until after the briefing? I see you nod. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Krekelzapi, please go ahead with the briefing.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Leah Krekelzapi, council staff. The proposed ordinance would approve Metro Transit bus service changes for September 2020, restructuring bus service in Southeast King County. And I'll begin by letting you know that this item is time sensitive because Metro needs 6 months to implement a service change, particularly under the current circumstances where they have some of their key staff have moved to COVID response roles temporarily. So they have sort of even less flexibility than they would under normal circumstances to implement a service change. Additionally, Metro has confirmed that recent developments related to the COVID-19 pandemic and recession haven't impacted Metro's commitment to moving forward with these proposed changes. So I'll now move on to the staff report for this item, and I want to acknowledge that I am taking over for Paul Carlson, who actually wrote most of the staff report, but as you know, has retired. So for this item and the previous item. So the materials for this item begin on page 87 of your packet, but I'll begin the staff report on page 160. So the Metro Long Range Plan, Metro Connects, calls for increased frequency and new connections to regional centers in South King County, and also identified a new rapid ride line connecting Auburn and Renton via Kent. And the 2019-2020 biennial budget includes funding for restructuring service in the Renton-Kent-Auburn area in September 2020, that Metro Connects vision. And it also includes funding for the new Renton-Kent-Auburn rapid ride line, designated the I-line, which I'll cover in the staff report for the next item. According to Metro staff, the network structure in South King County has not changed substantially in over a decade, while the area has seen dramatic population growth in recent decades. The intention of the proposed transit service change is to which Metro, by the way, is calling the Renton-Kent-Auburn Area Mobility Project, or RCAMP for short. It moves, the purpose is to move the South King County network towards the Metro Connect's vision, equitably respond to population growth and demographic changes in the area, more fully integrate with expanded Sounder commuter rail service, and create a single frequent route between Renton, Kent, and Auburn, which would be the proposed route, new Route 160. And that route would be eventually upgraded to the Rapid Ride I-Line once the capital components go in later. So according to Metro, the RCAMP it would restructure transit. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my notes a little bit. Okay, while the planning, funding, and construction of the capital elements associated with the implement of Rapid Ride I-Line aren't expected to be completed until 2023, that restructure is proposed to go forward in 2020. The proposed ordinance would approve the route changes that are shown in table 1, which is on page 100, begins on page 161 of your packet. Moving to page 165 of the staff report, Metro completed an equity impact review and recommendation development report, which documents Metro's outreach efforts for the proposed RCAMP service change and the implementation of the Rapid Ride I-Line. The report summarizes how Metro engaged the RCAMP area communities and stakeholders to develop a network recommendation for the September 2020 service change, and documents how Metro incorporated public input along with considerations of equity and service design principles into the decision-making process for the RCAMP and for the Rapid Ride I-Line proposals. And Metro's public engagement process included work with a 27-member mobility board, a partner review panel that included staff from cities in the area, Pierce Transit, Sound Transit, and the county council staff from the county council, and also outreach to 25 community-based organizations serving the area. So overall, a majority of the online and on-board survey respondents said they would use transit about the same under the proposal, and the next highest response had no opinion. But of the remaining respondents, there were more people who said they would use transit more as a result of the proposal compared to people who said they would not use transit. The Mobility Planning Board provided a letter of support for the RCAMP proposal, as did the jurisdictions of Auburn, Kent, Renton, and Tukwila. Moving to page 166 of the staff report, the Federal Transit Administration requires transit agencies to evaluate major service changes for Title VI impacts to determine whether they would have a disparate impact on the basis of race, color, or national origin, or if there's a disproportionate burden on low-income populations. The Metro's analysis of the RCAMP proposal concluded that there were disparate and disproportionate impacts in 2 of the census tracts that were included in the proposal, both of which were minority and low income. However, overall, the service change provides net benefits, according to Metro, for minority and low-income people in the project area, as 80% of the low-income and or minority census tracts in the area would be receiving an increase in the number of transit trips serving that tract, compared to those only 2 tracts that would see a decrease. Moving to the bottom of page 168, for service hour impacts, the RCAMP proposal is planned around a net investment of approximately 17,600 additional annual service hours. Those were allocated already in the 2019-2020 budget. So the budget allocated 10,000 for this service change, as well as some additional annual service hours to be invested for service growth according to the 2018 system evaluation report. The remaining service hour changes in the area would be the result of restructuring service to delete and revise some routes in order to add and expand to others. That concludes my staff report on this item. And we do have a number of Metro staff available to answer questions.
Thank you. I see them. I see the lovely bus background on Mr. Scott's video. That's great. Are there any further comments or questions for staff? Councilmember Updegrove?
I was just going to comment on final passage, Madam Chair.
All righty then. Any questions from anyone else? All right, hearing none. Councilmember Updegrove.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the Chair of the Mobility Environment Committee and yourself for bringing this forward. This is exciting for South King County. One, it's necessary to get done quickly in order to capture a federal grant. But it's been a long time coming, and it's pretty cool. It's going to be, the current plan is for a new rapid ride to run, if you can picture the Industrial Valley running from Renton through Kent down to Auburn, and then to align the routes with it. We also never restructured around Sounder rail service, so it gives us a chance to align to that. And with these additional hours, we're going to see better east-west connections through the valley, which is something people always have expressed an interest in, and also more evening and weekend service as well. So I want to thank Metro's outreach staff. I think it was an incredible job. I know, for example, they didn't just talk to local governments. They worked with our office to get contact information that they might not have had for small immigrant refugee organizations, and to make sure that all voices were heard. And anytime we do a restructure, as folks know, if you move a bus route one block over in order to let 10 people ride it, if it's further away from one person, even though the greater public good is served, there's always going to be some individuals who aren't happy with it. But I have really been impressed with the near unanimous support for these changes in the community. I think that is due in large part to the department legitimately listening, and when people do have questions and concerns, providing good information. So I wanted to thank Metro. And also, I don't know if Leah mentioned it or emphasized it, obviously Metro is facing a shortfall. We have huge service reductions right now. If those service reductions are going on still when these routes come online, it's expected they will start, unfortunately, at a reduced level. And as the department goes through their long-term planning efforts with us, based on our new revenue forecasts, none of this is immune to being part of that discussion. But for the time being, we're excited about it, and I appreciate your support.
Okay. Thank you. I did actually have one question. I'm sorry, I'm doing this after the speech on final passage. And the question is this. It's more of a yes or no question. We are in a really difficult time when it comes to providing transit service, generally speaking. We've been through, I think we're on our third level of service step downs based on declining revenue and also just having to keep people spread out. And we obviously are seeing a decline in sales tax as well as a loss of fare revenue. And so I just want to confirm with the Metro folks, maybe this is for Chris O'Clair, that we do this change now because it's part of our routine planning process, and then it becomes part of our system, but then it is subject to all the same stresses as the rest of the system, so that if we can't, for whatever reason, fully fill out all the trips that we were planning taking this up, that's just part of, so it's like, it doesn't get some special separate treatment because we're voting on it today, is just my question, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dombrowski.
A similar question. First, I really appreciate Councilmember Updegrove's outlining of the change, and I'm excited about it. It's, if you know that valley and it's what's happened there, it's a really needed change. But mine is on the capital budget component of it. With the rapid ride, typically there are capital investments in that part of our budget. Of course, it's like the operating budget is going to be tested. I wonder if Metro could help us understand that a little bit. Has the rapid ride capital investment been made, or do we think we'll be able to keep it and complete the improvements for the launch at the expected time?
Councilmember, I can answer the beginning of that question, and then I let Chris. So this particular ordinance, proposed ordinance, doesn't address the capital. The next item will. There is capital planned in the 6-year CIP for the I-line. It involves roughly half the money coming from a federal grant that approval of the next item would allow Metro to go forward with that grant approval process. Obviously, Chris will probably tell you that the capital's, budget moving forward is something that Metro will be reevaluating, but it is currently planned in the budget you last approved.
Leah, thank you so much. That is correct. And I just want to recognize that under the time period that we're under, we're also preparing our 2021-2022 budgets as it moves to the exec's office in the next few weeks. And in that, we are assessing what our current revenue forecasts are and how that affects our operating and our capital budgets. We're taking into consideration our commitments to our communities, our commitments to our grant funds, and how we can leverage those dollars to go as far as we can. And I want to assure you, and if Diane Carlson was here, she would say the same, that we aren't going to let go of our capital program, but we are taking a hard look at how we can kind of right-size it, given our time period that we're in, so that we can build the network for the future is really what we want to do, but make sure we're conscious of our resources at the time. We'll have more on that as it comes through with our budget planning process.
Okay, I see Councilmember Lambert has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So are we looking at any potential capital changes that might happen with social distancing for a while that potentially we may have revenue shorter because we are not going to have everybody in every seat, nobody's going to stand, whatever the final decisions are we factoring that in when we discuss these things?
So Councilmember Lambert, I want to assure you that we're looking at everything, that we are looking at as the world is changing daily in front of us and trying to understand what our employees need and what our customers' needs are. Any major capital plans that come out of the budget, though, and line items need to go through council. So you will be informed. My understanding, Rob Gannon's coming next week to talk to you a bit about COVID, the response, our protective equipment from employees, and then kind of where we're looking in the future of how we're going to be changing our system so that we can bring the riders back and really protect our employees from the future that we're looking at.
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work too, by the way.
Thank you. Councilmember Updegrove, do you want to reclose or just shall we go ahead and vote?
I just wanted to reiterate, I think, the point that Metro made, that we all recognize there's tremendous uncertainty delivering projects on the previously established schedules and budget, given the COVID-19 response and the subsequent budget constraints and prioritization. And those impacts are broader than this restructure and this one rapid line. And Metro is preparing to respond appropriately to these changing forecasts through the budget process. So any changes to the capital investment timeline and funding for this rapid ride line would be considered as part of that budget process. So kind of along the lines with the question you asked about the service hours, it doesn't advance in line ahead of anything else magically by our action today. But it will be part of that comprehensive look that's addressed by us based on Metro's recommendations in the upcoming budget.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so this item is before Councilmember Dembowski.
Sorry, and I'm not. To me, it doesn't make sense, but maybe I'm just missing it. I understood that the currently adopted budget, say the capital for this, is this a September start, Leah?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So it would be in this
line.
budget. And the problem is, I think our revenues are precipitously falling in this budget. So again, I'm supportive of the project. I was just trying, and I'm not making a comment. I'm trying to understand how it would work if our revenues in this budget are dropping precipitously. It seems like there's going to have to be a decision made to make sure this project is funded, and something else won't be, presumably, unless there were cushions or margins. But I don't understand how it would be kicked to the next budget. The operating, yes, but not the capital.
Yes, council member. So this proposed ordinance deals with the operating. This is not implementing the I-line. It's implementing the service change restructure around the I-line. So that capital funding is in there. Metro does have the CARES Act funding that is able to provide some revenue backfill for this year. However, I think, as Chris said, there will still be discussions about what changes need to be made.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just trying to keep it straight in my head. I appreciate the explanations. Nothing further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to vote on this item, and I'm going to call on the clerk to go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, by our vote, we have approved this item, and we will move on to item number 10. This is proposed ordinance number 2020-0120, establishing the locally preferred alternative for rapid ride I-line. Councilmember Dembowski.
Move adoption, Madam Chair.
All right, it is before us. Is there additional briefing, or was this covered entirely in the former briefing?
No, there's a whole additional briefing.
Well, let's go ahead then.
All right. Again, council, this is Leah Krekelzapi, council staff. The proposed ordinance would establish the locally preferred alternative, including the proposed alignment and station locations for Metro Transit's Rapid Ride I-Line connecting Renton, Kent, and Auburn. And so I'll begin by, again, letting you know that this is a time-sensitive item because Metro is seeking $56 million in federal funding for the I-Line project and needs to move forward with that application in the middle of 2020. So now, in order to keep that project on track. And Metro has confirmed that the project is currently on track with the proposed budget and plan scope. That the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, is moving forward on the same planned schedule for the Small Starts grant that that Metro would be seeking for this project. But they also have stated that any impacts to the project scope and schedule as a result of the COVID-19 issues would be handled in the 2021-2022 biennial budget. And that gets to what Councilmember Dembowski was mentioning. So this proposed ordinance doesn't approve money for capital. That was done in the 2019-2020 budget. Any adjustments to that would be made in either a supplemental or the 2021-2022 budget. What this proposed ordinance would do would be to adopt a locally preferred alternative, which would allow Metro to move forward with that federal funding application. And so with that upfront information, I will provide a brief staff report on the item. The materials for this item begin on page 661 of your packet, but I will begin my staff report on page 812 of your packet. So just some quick brief background on the Rapid Ride program. There's a table on page 813 of the packet that shows the current planned Rapid Ride expansion schedule. And again, that schedule may change as developments change, but that's the most recently adopted schedule. And so in the 2019-2020 biennial budget, the 6-year transit capital improvement program allocated $117 million for the I-line capital and infrastructure. The budget assumed a Federal Transit Administration Small Starts grant of $56 million. It also assumed 2 Washington State regional mobility grants, and the rest would be King County money. Proposed ordinance this proposed ordinance would approve that locally preferred alternative and establish the proposed alignment and station locations. It would also authorize Metro to commit to operating service at a specified level for up to 5 years, which is a condition of receiving federal Small Starts grant funding. Approval of the proposed ordinance would allow the project to move forward with that grant application and with the design work necessary to begin construction with a goal of service beginning in 2023. So the service for the Rapid Ride I-line would be established, partly established through what you just authorized, but there could be further enhancements to bring that new route up to Rapid Ride standards, and that would come in likely in 2020, 2022, or a year prior to the I-line beginning service. So as proposed, the I-line would travel 17 miles between Renton Transit Center and Auburn Station via Kent Station. The I-line would replace service on what will be implemented in the fall as Route 160. And there's a figure on page 116 of your packet that shows the proposed alignment. The I-line would connect to the current Rapid Ride F line, to other bus routes, and to the Sounder commuter rail. And it's proposed to have 82 station locations. As the project moves into the design phase, elements such as the exact placement of each station they may be influenced and impact the final placement or count of stations. Proposed ordinance requires that changes to station placements would be communicated and coordinated with the King County Council and with the local jurisdictions along the route. Metro developed the proposed I-line through a planning process that's documented in a report that was included with the proposed ordinance. The engagement summary notes that Metro conducted its first phase of engagement beginning in early 2019 in tandem with the engagement around the Renton, Kent, Auburn area mobility project. According to Metro, feedback from the community informed Metro's proposed speed and reliability improvements, station locations and designs, and access improvements for the station design. The cities of Auburn, Kent, and Renton have provided letters of support for the proposed alignment. Moving on to ridership and operating costs on page 118 of your packet, Metro estimates that there will be 9,000 to 12,000 daily riders on the I-line in the opening year of 2023, compared to approximately 6,000 daily riders in the corridor today. In the September In the September 2020 service change package that you just approved, the Route 160 is allocated about 67,000 hours annual service hours. In order to meet sort of the rapid ride standards for service, service would need to increase by an additional approximately 37,000 annual service hours in 2023. As a requirement for the receipt of an FTA small starts grant, King County would need to enter into an agreement with the FDA committing to operate service on the I-line at a specified level for a period of 5 years. To stay on track with the small starts grant application, the executive would need the authority to enter into such a project agreement by mid-2020. And a policy consideration for entering into a service commitment for the I-line is how such a service commitment would comply with policies established in Metro service guidelines for prioritizing service investments. So the service guidelines recognize that service investments expand and contract according to availability of resources, but a service commitment implies a static investment. According to Metro, the FTA project agreements typically include language allowing the FDA to grant a waiver to all or a portion of the service requirement at FDA's discretion. So Metro has stated that if the agency were in a scenario of needing to cut service and the process of using the service guidelines identified a need to cut rapid ride service, Metro would enter into discussions with the FDA about seeking a waiver to comply with the service guidelines. If the waiver were not granted, Metro would not be able to cut service on the I-line during the term of the service. And that concludes my staff report, other than to say that there is an amendment for your consideration in the green folder, which I can describe. You're on mute, Councilmember Chair Balducci.
Thank you. Why don't we take up the amendment and then discuss the item as amended or not?
Okay. So Amendment 1 would make minor technical changes and add a new attachment B to the proposed ordinance to provide a more detailed description of the proposed station locations for Rapid Ride I-line. And that's just to be consistent with the level of detail that was included in previous I-line or Rapid Ride alignment decisions.
Who's the sponsor of the amendment? Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of Amendment 1.
Thank you. Just for purposes of procedure, where could I find that? I'm looking in the email, and is it in the green folder?
It's in the green folder, yeah.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Sure.
So is it page 7? Corrects the date and adds an additional attachment to provide a more detailed description of the station locations?
It is page 7.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that's helpful to me just to be able to find things. Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the amendment carries. Now we're on the item as amended. I'm going to weigh in first and just say, since this didn't go to committee, we're briefing this for the first time and voting it today. I understand that it's time sensitive. I am very concerned to learn that we are committing to a certain level of service on one particular alignment. That is concerning to me, and I would like for someone to explain to me why I should not be concerned by it.
Well, I can start out by saying this is something that it was in the Rapid Ride G line alignment ordinance as well, the service commitment. It is new other than the G line because prior Rapid Ride alignments didn't have this requirement when they sought federal grants. I see that Greg McKnight is on this call, so I'll let him fill in whatever I don't include. My understanding is that the service guidelines dictate sort of the priorities for service cuts. Typically, rapid ride lines are some of the last to be identified to be cut because of all the reasons that you look at. I mean, they tend to serve the most dense, most sort of demographically diverse areas of the county, and that's why they were chosen for rapid ride lines. You usually have some of the best performance. So that's one thing. My understanding, and I want Greg to back me up if this is the correct understanding from my conversations with him, is that Metro's actually using a bit of a conservative service level commitment with the FTA. I think I'll let him speak to what level the application is going to say.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Greg.
Ken, go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Greg McKnight. I'm with King County Metro. I'm the project manager for Rapid Ride I-Line. And yes, this ordinance does include language about a commitment to those service hours that would be entered into when we get to that agreement. This particular ordinance doesn't actually lay out what that will be, but that's part of the process with the FTA. But the service commitment is really to provide the excellent, high quality service along a critical backbone of Metro's system. So we will be negotiating that with the FTA, and we aren't necessarily committing to what that number is right now. It's just the fact that we would have to do that. So there's still a lot of time, and obviously the budgets that we're looking at right now would influence that process as we start those discussions with the FDA.
Is this a requirement of the grant being approved, or is the grant already approved and now we have to make good on something?
It would.
Oh, sorry, this is a requirement just to apply for the grant.
Yeah, Councilmember Balducci, it's Chris O'Clair, and I think the important thing is this is a new standard set by the FTA. So it's brand new for all BRT-like facilities that they're making this requirement. It doesn't mean we can't cut service on this corridor, but we have to be really mindful of the commitments that we made. It's going to be true of every single rapid ride line that we're bringing forward in the near future. It's something that we're also going to have to discuss in a post-COVID world. So it's already on our list to begin to discuss how do we address this if our world is changing and what that would look like. But this is part of the grant requirement for today. I fully acknowledge that we're already discussing the FTA about the changes that might be needed post-COVID.
I understand the rationale behind the FTA requirement makes perfect sense. They don't want to invest in a rapid ride line and then find it turns into something that is not frequent enough. They're investing in train-like service, if you will. There's something that is not just a local, a local service at frequency and volume and all of that. But I've been on the lookout in a number of settings for decisions we're being asked to make now that might have made sense when they were put together, like a long time ago, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, but now they're just not making sense. And this is the first one that really kind of troubles me. I just don't want us to commit to something where we're suddenly going to be running very high frequencies on 1 or 2 bus lines when everything else we know where we're at. We're at 70% of, more than 70% reduced ridership, which translates into enormously reduced revenue. We know we're in that situation. And so I'm very concerned with taking a vote that commits us. Now I get you have to negotiate with the FTA. I heard that. I thank you for that. But if I vote for this today, my vote is to say, yes, we will go and negotiate some minimum service commitment. And I don't know if that's something we should be doing right now.
Councilmember, could I speak briefly about the service and the ridership we're seeing today? South end of our county is the one area that we are actually seeing a really high demand. As we were ramping down services, the 169 and the 180 are the routes on this rapid ride. And we do expect to maintain a high level of frequency. We are seeing pass-ups today because our loads are hitting that 12 and 18 passenger count on our services. So I just want to assure you that this is an area of the county that is in essential workers. This is an area where service workers are essential, and we really see a need. But I do understand your concerns and your commitments associated with this. If we can get the Alliance to move forward with the alignment of this line, it can help us have those conversations with the FTA. But post-COVID, this is an area that needs more service. And I do expect that the discussions with the FTA will evolve as we bring this capital investment forward.
Okay, but we're voting today to set the alignment and the station locations, and what comes along with that is a commitment to a certain amount of frequency, or a commitment that we're going to commit to a certain amount of frequency. So are we committing to the capital program here as well?
You've already committed to the capital program per the capital budget that happens through your budget process. So those monies have already been appropriated through that.
And the thing is, the discussion that you were having on the last item with Councilmember Dembowski, and I want to call on him now.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I appreciate you raising those concerns. And what I'm trying to understand, I understand we have a budget today that funds this, but that budget today just got blown up. We don't have the money this year in this cycle to carry out that budget, is my understanding, or we may want to re-look at it to conserve resources for the next couple of years. I mean, I think everything's on the table. So to be honest with you, the answer that we've already budgeted in this cycle and it's ready to go, I'm not sure that's an entirely satisfactory answer given the changed circumstances. It may be, but I guess my question then is, following Councilmember Balducci's, if we approve this today, are we committing to the service hours that Leah Krekelzapi outlined, 30-some thousand annual hours? Or will we have a chance to have this service on the table with everything else? I mean, what I feel a little bit like is, and I like what you're doing here, but I feel like maybe this is just getting in under the wire. We're locking into a new line, and we are going to have really devastating cuts throughout the system on capital and operations. And is this somehow going to be more sacred than others? And if it is, I don't want us to lose the grant. I'd like to be able to vote for you to be able to proceed, but not have it be a final decision that doesn't have to go through the COVID and post-COVID filter of all of our operations, if that question makes sense.
So let me just be clear here that today we're voting on the alignment that helps us apply for the federal grant. Councilmember Dembowski, you're absolutely right that as we look at the post-COVID world, we're quickly looking at our operating capital budget. We do expect it to change, and we do expect that we're going to reevaluate the timing and the phasing of all of our rapid ride lines. But today, the alignment is needed for the FTA grant so we can get that commitment. If we wait 6 to 8 months, we lose the commitment from FTA, and that's really would set us backwards. We are not making a service level commitment. We are merely making a service commitment. The actual level hasn't been determined or discussed. Right now, the FTA is just asking that we're making a commitment. This was a frequent line. And just from a technical perspective, we do believe that there's frequent service there today. We do believe that it's an essential element of our network, but we, like you, do not want to make a commitment to the actual level today due to the uncertainty of our budget. That is okay for FTA. Okay. All they need right now is the alignment.
That helps me, and I appreciate it.
It does.
I will clarify the proposed ordinance, the language that the council is giving the authority to the executive to enter into an agreement on a service level commitment. And as Chris was saying, that's to be determined what level that would be negotiated to.
I fully expect to revisit this discussion as part of the 2021-22 budget process. In the capital budget and the operating, we can pull out specifically a discussion of what we'll commit to on this particular rapid ride line and along with all other future rapid ride lines.
Cole Wells.
Okay, Council Member Cole Wells.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm supportive of this measure. I think we really need to pass this so that we are eligible for applying for the grant. but I have a question of Christina. Christina, am I correct in my understanding that federal funds should be coming in to replace our revenue loss? That's correct?
Council member, we received federal funds from the CARES Act, but we are trying to determine how we can appropriate those funds and what the federal laws are around that. I'm going to ask that we defer that question to next week. Very specifically, Rob Gannon will be here, and we can have John Risha to talk about how those funds will be distributed.
Okay. And just a more of a broad, maybe rhetorical question here, that unlike some funding restrictions for the counties, the cities, the transit departments are able to be receiving federal funds to make up for lost revenue, is my understanding.
That's correct.
I'm not asking you what decision should we make on how to expend those, but that's just kind of a bottom line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? I see that we are, and I'm going to call on the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay, by our vote, we have approved this ordinance. Thank you all. I see a number of smiling faces on the Metro side. Good job, you all, on this one and the last one. It's great to see you virtually and see that you're continuing to, think about the future of the system and not just hanging on to the present, which has got to feel good some days. So thank you. All right, next we have item number 11, and that is proposed ordinance number 2020-0175, which amends some of our council rules. Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of ordinance 2020-175 and am prepared to speak to it.
Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This emergency ordinance actually corrects a reference within emergency ordinance we adopted at our last full council meeting 2 weeks ago. It is regarding the legislation that it corrects a reference within is the legislation that allows us to use the roll call votes in council meetings during the emergency rather than the signature reports.
Yes, so there was an error and we're correcting it. Any questions? Seeing none, I would join Councilmember McDermott in urging your support. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, we have approved this item. Thank you very much. Item 12 is the hearing examiner consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please read that into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 12 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0056, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Nari Baker for property located at parcel number 14220290033.
Councilmember Dembowski, would you move that item?
Yes, I move adoption of the hearing examiner consent agenda.
All right, that item is before us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dembowski votes aye. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn votes aye. Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells votes aye. Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert votes aye. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott votes aye. Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove votes aye. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer votes aye. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai votes aye. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed substitute ordinance 2020-0056. If there is no objection, the published marked agenda, together with any changes made in today's meeting, will stand approved as the first reading and referral of ordinances, item 13 through 18 as listed. At the end of our agenda, we have made a commitment to make sure that we recaptured all votes. I heard that we captured all of them. Madam Clerk, did you get the same?
I got the same, Madam Chair.
So everyone has been recorded as attending and voting on all items. That brings us to the end. Is there any other business? I want to thank everyone for participating in this first ever historic video meeting. It showed its newness, I think, in some of the process. We're going to take some lessons learned away from this that we can do better next time. But I think all in all, it went pretty well. And with that, we will be adjourned.